You're listening to The Upland Rookie, a podcast presented by Onyx Hunt, Final Rise, and Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. And welcome to episode 82 with Ryan Mulcahy, part one of a two-part series. And this podcast is also presented to you by Onyx Hunt, the most comprehensive public and private land ownership data mapping tool in the world. Many tools and layers like crop types, tree species, waypoints, and so much more. The Onyx Elite membership is going to give you a ton of access to a whole bunch of benefits, discounts on awesome gear. If you're not using Onyx Hunt already, I highly encourage you, get over to onyxhunt.com and sign up today. And be sure to check out Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, the only sporting dog, high-performance dog food I'm feeding my string of dogs. Have been using this for several years, and Inukshuk has delivered and lived up to and surpassed all the hype you've been hearing about online through friends, kennels, breeders, all that. And it has just been a high-quality premium food. I've been able to cut back several cups of food for my dogs, still keeping weight on them during season, during trialing, whatever it might be. These dogs are in the best shape they've been in, personally, in a long, long time. And thanks to Inukshuk Professional Dog Food, they have 4 incredible formulas. Check them out at inukshukpro.com. And last but not least, Final Rise Gear. I am so pumped and proud to be representing the Final Rise brand. They have been producing year after year quality premium upland gear that is made for the hunter, the bird hunter who is putting on miles after miles, season after season, and wants gear to hold up to the elements of how you are hunting. You got to look no further than finalrise.com. Check out the Summit vest, the Summit XT vest, which is brand new, the Sidekick vest, as well as the Legacy. So many vest options, which are totally customizable. I'm pretty darn confident you're going to find something that works for you and your setup. So check them out at finalrise.com. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Upland Rookie Podcast. I am your host, Will Larson. Yes, nothing has changed there. It's still me, coming to you from my garage. Same old, same old. It's a Monday morning, day after Easter. Had a great weekend. We were in church with the family. We had family over for late lunch, I guess. Dinner, lunch, whatever you want to call it. It was awesome. Watched the Avs win last night, which was way closer of a game than it should have been against the Anaheim Ducks. But we're ready, guys. We're ready. We have a great, got a two-parter today, 2-part episode. I'm not releasing them both on the same day, but I will release part 2 in a couple days. So stay tuned. I broke up this episode with Ryan Mulcahy into 2. We got going. We had some things to talk about. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this 2-parter. So make sure, if you like this one, stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed, because you don't want to miss part 2 coming out in a couple days. So couple orders of business, if I would, I don't know, like to say. I'm in a mood today. I'm in a mood. Not sure if you can tell. Lots of coffee has gone down the hatch already. It's 9:54 in the morning. Feeling good. We got some nice weather out here in Colorado finally. It's been a long winter, but a couple things. I got a giveaway. Who doesn't like a good giveaway? We just wrapped up our spring gear giveaway with Final Rise a couple weeks ago, and I have another giveaway coming your way. So make sure you get signed up on Patreon, become a Patreon supporter of the Upland Rookie Podcast. And again, with the weather turning, getting a little warmer out for some of us, and one of the products that has come out, I think came out last year, was the Gunner Fan Kit 2.0. And so I got another Gunner Fan Kit 2.0 to give away to a listener of the show. So make sure you get signed up at Patreon, and you will be entered into the giveaway. And so a couple weeks left in April. Get signed up. I'll be drawing a winner from the Patreon platform to walk away with a brand new Gunner Fan Kit 2.0 and an Upland Rookie hat. So get excited. Those fans come in handy, keeping dogs cool in the summer months, even in spring, based on where you live. It can be warm, so really come in handy with keeping dogs cool. This thing is all stainless steel internal, so it can be out in the weather, get wet, all that good stuff, dirt, grime. These things hold up incredibly well. So you can mount them to pretty much any kennel out there, pretty universal. So whether you have a gunner or you have another another kennel setup, this is going to mount to that kennel very, very well. Of course, it's designed for a gunner. So if you have one, that's awesome. If not, you'll figure out a way. I'm confident in you. You'll figure out a way to get that fan kit mounted to your kennel setup. So anyways, enough with that. One more announcement is if you are a YouTube watcher, which I'm guessing if you were like me, you spend probably too many hours on YouTube watching some videos that are very helpful or useful, some that are just wasting your time. But if you're a YouTube watcher, just let you know that all the podcast episodes are being uploaded to YouTube. So I don't know if you listen to podcasts through YouTube, then the Upland Rookie is going to be there for you. If not, that's awesome. Keep listening to, through Apple or Spotify or, Amazon Music, whatever you're listening to the podcast on, that's great. But just know there's another option up on YouTube. So I think we've got about half of them uploaded right now over there. So if you listen through YouTube or we want to, or I don't know, who knows? It's an option for you up on YouTube. So head over there, subscribe to the Upland Rookie podcast. That'd be awesome. I've done a couple gear review videos over there. I'll be doing a couple more here in the future. And yeah, so those are my announcements. I wanted to do a listener question here. We got Tyler wrote in. This is a good one. Tyler wrote, I think I missed the Insta questions a couple days ago about the topics to discuss, but here you go. But have you ever done anything on dynamics of having a male and a female in the same house? You always hear people say to stick to the same sex, but I would think having one of each may offer some balance. IDK. I don't know. IDK. Great question, Tyler. I think that's a very, very fair question because I've heard the same thing. I've heard, if you get a male, get another male. If you have a male, get a female. I've heard if you have a male, don't get another. I've heard like all the different combinations because if you get another male with a male, then they're going to be too dominant and aggressive. Same thing with having a male and a female, then they're going to want to hump each other all the time. I've heard all of it. So my personal experience, so I have a male and a female. I had two males and a female at one point. There's some dynamics of, especially if you, I think, have the female and the male intact, there's going to be, dynamics of, is your goal to breed them? Is it not to breed them? There's a couple times a year when, wind goes into heat, or getting ready to go into heat, just coming out of heat. It's kind of a long cycle that gauges if he's in very close proximity to her. I mean, he'll lose his mind. He will lose her mind. So strategically, how I have my yard set up and my house set up, when she's going into heat or is in her heat cycle, I'm keeping them as far away as possible. But again, I'm able to do that with my run setup, side of the house, backyard. They're very separated. So, if you're planning to have your male and your female intact, I would just think it's going to depend on your setup if you can keep them separated, because it's takes some planning, takes some coordination on keeping them separated and just being smart with it. Again, if you don't want to breed them, you just need to be very, very cautious. Again, I'm not ready to breed Win yet, so again, I'm being cautious as well, keeping them separated. So, again, I'm just speaking from my personal experience. Maybe some others have thoughts out there. I would love to hear some of those. Male versus female. Should you have two males? Stick with all females. What it might be. When I had two males and a female, I kept the males together, and I mean, they were buds. I mean, maybe it's just their personalities. There was no issues as far as dominance or aggressiveness. They got along. They were buds. And then she was pretty much by herself. Obviously, if she was not going to be going into heat, they'd all play together sometimes, hunt together, train together. Like, there was no difference there. So yes, I mean, it's going to depend on the dog, I think, a lot too. If they're an aggressive dog, aggressive male, temperament issues, breed, it's going to depend on a lot of different things. But all that to say, I've heard the same things. People say, oh, only get males or only get females or whatever. I think it's just going to depend on the dog, the temperament, your setup, your intentions on breeding, not breeding. Do you spay? Do you neuter? Do you not? So a lot of variables there. But again, speaking from my experience, the males have been buds. Female, when she's not in heat, can hang and can play and do whatever they need to do with the males as well. So that's all I got for you, Tyler. Thanks for writing that question in. I appreciate it. Kind of fun to unpack some things. Again, I'm only going to give you guys advice on things I have personal experience with. Again, I could be way off, but again, from my experience, I'm just sharing with you what I know. So if you guys have other questions, I guess, or other things you want to hear kind of unpacked in my 5-minute, or try to be under 5-minute hot takes, shoot me a message, email me. DMs on Instagram are probably the best way, at the Upland Rookie on Instagram. So email is great too, whatever works for you. So I'm not picky. So that's all I got for you. We're going to jump in to part 1 of the two-parter with Ryan Mulcahy. Ryan has been kind of a long overdue guest, honestly. I've wanted to get him on for a long time, and I think just schedule conflicts and just life kind of got in the way. So I was super pumped to get Ryan on, pick his brain on breeding, bird dog development, reading dogs, roading dogs, puppies, just unpack of really what he's looking for in bird dogs, the intelligence side of things. We go into a whole bunch. This might be one of my favorite episodes. I know. I'm sorry. I said it. I'm not going to take it back. Might be one of my favorite episodes. So we're going to jump in. Hope you guys enjoy. Take care.
The last 8 years have been in Idaho. Okay. So since 2015, and then basically started training full time out there, and then it just continued to snowball. Otherwise, good, bad, or otherwise, it just kept building. And thankfully, there's a lot of opportunities out there if you're willing to be uncomfortable. And I've never had much of an income, so I was very willing to be uncomfortable, to have a little bit of income, and then also chase a dream. And I didn't really realize it was a dream, and then it just keeps going. So it actually, what I've kind of compared my experience to is, if you're like, you go out too hard in a race and you're like, or in a workout or something, you're breathing real hard and you don't feel like you're getting any oxygen back in. And you probably know this more than most, being at elevation. That, you feel like you never really get a full breath of air back in.
Yeah.
That has essentially been my short career in a nutshell. It just, every opportunity you jump at, you don't know what's going to be your last. So, and that's the hard part with it. So the good and the bad,
The good and the bad, absolutely. Yeah. So it's an adventure and it's scary, and you just got to kind of jump into things, and that's crazy, man. Well, I'm looking forward to unpacking it more and hearing more about your story and journey. So we're excited to have you here, Ryan. But Ryan, I gotta ask you. This is fresh off the last couple of weeks or so. I'm not sure if you followed along on the bird dog bracket on the old Graham. What? Give me your thoughts. Give me your reaction to the bird dog bracket here.
Well, I feel like we already knew who was going to win from the start. I mean, you probably. I mean, there's puppy mills with short hairs coming out, right? And it's America's favorite dog. And they're, don't get me wrong, they're not my cup of tea, but I've worked some really, really enjoyable ones.
Sure.
In fact, a lot of them we get some really good work done with them. But for what I do, it's hard to get the dog to be that standard consistently. And, and it's not putting them down at all. They have a different utility.
It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So if you bred enough generations of them and ran your program based on like wherever you go in the world to work dogs, it doesn't matter the breed. You're going to be able to create something. But that's the short hair is America's breed of choice right now for any.
Yeah. Why is it, you think? What is it about the short hair?
Well, it truly is probably the most versatile dog in the world.
Sure.
The thing that I would love to do this, and I haven't done it yet, and I should be able to in the future here because my work schedule, I won't be working as many 80-hour weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that hasn't happened in a long time, but I should have a little bit of freedom to travel. I really want to go up and watch the Iditarod, and I know that's like a big show and everything, but at least want to watch certain stages or parts of it, seeing mushers. I want to watch them handle dogs. I want to watch them be around their team. I want to see the carnage, what they're doing to try to manage that team along the way. But I really want to see even the short course dogs, which the short hair is the ideal dog for ski joring, bike joring, and canicross. And it's a dog that, and we'll get into this, but if you breed certain characteristic generation after generation and then just continue to enhance it, that's going to be the right dog. And there was a gal I was chatting with this year, and she was asking me about, possibly breeding into one of my males. And I said, I don't think it's going to be the type of dog that you want because she does ski joring, and she's one. I think she was very competitive worldwide. And I said, muscle wise, they're going to have it. The fluidity in their gait is different. You're basically looking for.
And you're talking about your pointers, right?
Yeah. Because our dogs have to. It's a different. It's just a different structure and build that we're looking for compared to what they're looking for, and the fluidity in their gait is completely different. And if you took a like 70 to 90 pound short hair and crossed it to a greyhound, that's essentially what they're running. And, or a stag hound or something, depending on whatever type of terrain you're in, if you needed a little bit of hair or whatever. But those dogs are, oh gosh, they're fast, and they're incredible athletes, and they've got endurance to boot. And when you breed enough generations of them and you go down through and work them, like, that's a different short hair. They don't hunt. They aren't bred to hunt. And that's what people have to realize. Like, I had a guy one day say, well, I bet those dogs never hunt. I'm like, I bet you the last 20 generations of them haven't been bred to hunt. They've been bred to run. And that's like, whatever we're doing, if we're breeding with that purpose, that's what we're going to create if you work them. It doesn't matter the breed. So like,
if that means to be a running sled dog, if that means to be a champion bike joring dog, whatever it might be, like, whatever, like your goal is, whether you're a kennel or breeder, whatever you are, like whatever your focus is. If you want crazy ass great bird dogs, then you're breeding for that.
And then regardless of breed, and I know I get off on these tangents real easy, but regardless of breed, that's kind of the fascinating part. But what people don't want to know is that there is a culling process. Whatever way that goes, there is a selection, and they don't all get bred. And that's the part where our human side we have to get rid of the bias of, well, I really like this dog. Well, right. But the dog doesn't pertain what we need to move forward. And so it doesn't mean you have to destroy the animal. It just means that it's not in this program. And that's what folks have to understand. They don't all get bred, and they should not all get bred.
Should not, right?
No.
Just because you like it, just because you love a dog, and they might look great, or they might find birds. Like, those are all good qualities, right?
Right.
Doesn't mean that they have the whole package to be bred.
That's right. Yeah. And the others, kind of the way I've even looked at it is, a lot of people, you go to their kennel and they're like, oh, well, I got a big time stud dog. Well, in that reference, that means that dog will throw themselves in every single breeding. Okay. So if you're having a stud dog, you're proclaiming that this dog will throw themselves a majority of the time in every breeding. Okay. I don't look at it that way. If I'm trying to get, if I'm looking at A and B and trying to get a C, like A plus B equals C. Well, if I'm looking at the pups for that next generation, I might have to create something in order to breed it to what I have. So the ultimate equation is what I am looking for and maybe what I have in my kennel. So I might have a male that I'm like, if I would really like to breed that male, but he needs to be bred to a certain type of female, I might not be able to find her. I might spend 10 years trying to find her and I don't find her, right? So I've got to go and create her. You
got to kind of create create that thing you're looking for.
You have to create the transport.
Wow.
And so, I look at a lot of that stuff and we don't always think about it. We think only one generation ahead. And it doesn't mean that those dogs are poor or this or that, but if you're looking at the grand scheme, sometimes you got to be looking 2 and 3 generations down the line, and you've got to match it up along the way. So, it's a hard equation to think through, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we just jumped. We're 5 minutes in, man, and we just went right to breeding. I definitely want to circle back on that. But so real quick, and we're going to kind of go through the rest of this. Yeah. Did you think the pointer ever had a chance in the bracket?
No, not at all.
Was there any hope? No. Any just smidge of?
No, and it never will. It's think about this. How many people really like the Yankees? Right. Well, think about that. So think about their dominant past, right?
Sure.
The pointer is the pinnacle of bird dogs, and that's not putting down a different breed. They were, that dog was only bred for work. That was all they were bred for. So there was no real companionship. It wasn't bred for that. There was no real breeding for show because the European style of pointer was used is used for show. So if you really look at it, the pointer has been bred purely for purpose.
Sure.
And so if you're looking at the majority of folks out there, and we're getting further and further away from working with animals at a high level like we used to, because now we've got gadgets and we've got busier lives and less land to access. So why, if you look at it in that grand scheme of things, the pointer's it's a plantation dog. It's a Texas dog. It's a pot, certain types or parts of the country, certain people are going to run them. It's no different than a Walker coonhound. My dad has been working coonhounds for over 65 years now. And before I was born, he swapped mostly to Walkers. And I asked him, why'd you go to Walkers from English? Because he started with English, and he was, I believe, and I could be wrong, he was working English and breeding them before Briar Creek, which if you ever listen to Houndsman XP podcast, they talk about Briar Creek kennel.
Okay.
He was doing it before them. And then one of their foundation dogs they brought up on an episode, and I asked my dad about him, and he said, no, I never bred to him, because the dog was not a good producer. Well, it was one of their foundation dogs. But he said the reason, and he said, I didn't have the right female to breed to him to try to almost amplify that generation. He said, so basically he goes, I lost all my stock and I swapped away from it. and I went to the walkers because I could get the right dogs. And, so that's kind of, I look at things a little differently because,
sure,
well,
and that kind of goes to what we were just talking about the breeding thing. It's like your dad said, like he didn't have the right female to breed to that dog.
Yeah.
Right. Like that male could have been throwing great pups, right?
Could have been. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Right.
But if you don't have that truly right dog to breed to, then just, you got to make a decision.
Throw that nick. Right. And then you're looking for a nick. You're looking for a generational cross that can propel little by little, because a lot of these guys you'll see, and they'll use catchphrase terms, whenever they talk about their dogs, like, oh, that dog's a machine. They're this, and they build them up. And all I want to do is work. I want to look at them and work them. That's it. Don't try to sell them to me. Don't do any of that crap, because all I want to do is watch them.
Because of you as the person, looking to do this breeding or whatever, you kind of know what you're looking for, right? So you don't need someone to sell you on, oh, they do this, 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 and this. Yeah. Right. You already know what you're looking for. And so, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's kind of the whole take on it all. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I was actually so my great grandfather used to run Brittany's. He had I think a couple decent Brittany's that he ran in the grouse woods back in the day. Okay. And they did a lot of bird hunting. They were all farmers. And so when they had free time, they were running coonhounds, or they were running beagles, or they were running bird dogs. And they had a lot of rough grouse near the farm. And then they also had some pheasants back then too, that were wild birds. But
that's awesome.
So I want to say that dog's name was Dash, and they killed a lot of grouse over Dash. And so Dash was not alive when I was a kid. Okay. He had some poor Weimaraner in the kennel, I think. I remember seeing
that's a dog you don't hear much about anymore. No. I feel but weren't they like super popular way back in the day?
Well, I think it was World War II. A lot of the military were bringing them back. They were these real pretty dogs, and they were smuggling these puppies back into the United States. And then, but the hard part is if you don't have a genetic pool. They really didn't have a genetic pool, so now you're like, well, okay, I've got to breed them to something if I want to keep them around. Otherwise, it just dwindles. But like any of that stuff, we'll get into that in a breeding talk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel all this keeps coming back to breeding. Well, hey, since we're 15 minutes in here, we have not properly introduced you to anyone, so the people are like, who the hell are we talking to right now? Can you go ahead and just tell us who you are and a little overview, just high level, and then put us on a map. Where are you talking to us from?
Okay. My name is Ryan Mulcahy. I am the owner, operator, and manure scooper of Born to Run Kennels. And we are essentially a traveling circus, and we are now living in Georgia, in Millen, Georgia, about 15 miles from Waynesboro, which is the bird dog capital of the world. And Harold Ray, if anybody knows of Harold Ray's kennel is over in Waynesboro. I haven't been there yet, but he's there. And Harold's incredible from everything I've seen and heard. And so if you drive into Waynesboro, what I've also discovered in my short time here, you drive into Waynesboro, everything is themed with bird dogs. So certain buildings have setters on them. Certain buildings have pointers. There is one mural with a short hair on it. We don't talk about that side of town. But it's really neat. If you look up on the water tower, there's a silhouette of Tomoka, the famous setter up there. And
this sounds just like the city of Denver.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's just kind of neat. If you're an enthusiast of it and you're walking around town and you're like, oh gosh, there's just bird dogs on street signs. There's bird dogs on businesses. It's just kind of neat. And then if you go into a certain place, they'll talk about field trials over at Dye Lane Plantation, which I believe all the the Georgia All Age and Shooting Dog trials are held over at Die Lane Plantation, which is about 10 minutes out the backside of the plantation I'm on. So
that's awesome.
And the plant. Well, I don't know if you really. I guess it's plantation. I don't know. We don't do any crops, but it's all managed for birds. It's
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's approximately 5,000 acres, a little under, and it's called Spring Mill, and we are in Millen, Georgia, and it's quite new. We've been working with Tall Timbers, or they have been working with Tall Timbers organization the last few years, and they're getting the habitat correct, and they're getting the birds building. And since getting here, I have been hearing birds whistling and calling each other right from the house that I live at. So it's kind of nice.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll loop back to a little bit more Born to Run Kennels, kind of what brought you down to Georgia and some of your other stuff. But before we go any further, tell me a little bit about your story. I know you mentioned your dad running coon dogs, your grandpa being in bird dogs. So just tell me a little bit about, like, was this lifestyle, was bird dogs and training, was this an option for you? Was this something you kind of got into a little bit later? Tell me your journey a little bit, get into this.
So this was, okay. So I guess it all started off at probably about 3 or 4 years old. And I always wanted to be outdoors with Dad, working the hounds and the puppies and taking them for walks and whatnot. And at that time he had Walker pups consistently. We would have, Mom and I say that we had up to 40 dogs at a time. Dad says we never had that many. And
he denies that.
with him because, I'm going to side with him on this because a litter of puppies is one dog to me. So, and so now I'm going to side with him on that, because if I was a kid growing up, I'm looking at a puppy at the same age as a mature dog, and it's not. Yeah. But Dad, before I was born, one of the big championships he held up in, so I'm originally from Towanda, Pennsylvania, which is northeast Pennsylvania. One of the championships he held drew, I believe, 110 dogs, and it took approximately 2 weeks for them to conclude that championship. And so he put that on, and that was, he ran the Coon Club up there, as they called it, and it was in partnership with the Beagle Club. And to kind of fast forward, one of my college teammates that I ran with all through college, he got into Beagles once he got out of school. I watched him put his first championship on one of his prize dogs at the Towanda Beagle Club. And that was one of the coolest things, because he got into Beagles and I really dove into the bird dogs. And, then you fast forward 5
Sorry,
years later.
real quick, Ryan.
Yeah.
Real quick, Ryan.
Yeah,
sorry. So was your dad running bird dogs at all, or was he just in the coon dog space?
Just coon dogs.
Okay.
So, and then, and I can jump back and forth too much, but so Dad ran the Coon Club, but it did the same building and facility was for the Beagle Club as well. So that's where I grew up. On the weekends that we didn't have sports or anything going on, I was always there. So then you fast forward, I guess, probably 20 years, and I get to watch one of my best friends put a championship on one of his dogs there. And it was kind of neat, because neither one of us really, thought about it when we were in college. So, but
that's crazy.
But Dad was always tied in with dogmen. In fact, most people know of Terry Merritt from Merritt Setters. And Terry's since passed away, but Terry and my uncle were best friends. And Terry lived in Appalachian, New York. So just below Binghamton. He ran his setters, which were prize dogs, and that line is continuing to go. But he also ran coonhounds, and he ran beagles. The man did everything. So Dad was kind of tied in with, we'll just call them dogmen. And
just of all, whether hounds or pointing or whatever.
Yep, exactly. So that's kind of the life that he showed me at a young age, and I guess I just really enjoyed that time with him. And I enjoyed when I was about 4 years old, he'd be carrying me through the woods at night and just carry me in his arm. And, dogs would be baying on a tree, and we'd get into the tree, and then he'd get in there, and I would just stand back and I would watch him work, and he would work these dogs, and if he had a young dog, he would take his leads and he would kind of tie him back from the tree, and then I would just shine my light up the tree. I had a little headlamp like a miner's cap, and and he had one, and he would climb up the tree to where the coon was. He'd grab him by the tail and swing him out to the ground and let it hit the ground, and it would take off running. Well, then he would climb down and turn that young dog loose that he was working, and let them get some more repetition. And so, I watched that a lot, and
that's so cool.
During the school week, if he was working dogs, and Mom wouldn't let me go during the school week, I would throw an awful fit. I mean, it was. I wasn't going to bed until the lights turned into the driveway.
Don't keep a boy from his dogs, and
they knew that. They knew I guess they knew that about me, and it wasn't that they were trying to diminish it, but they wanted me to get an education. Both of them demanded it, and so. Basically, Dad demanded I get a college education, and with Mom, it was just, you're going to do this. And I did.
This is no option.
Yeah.
So when did the turn? So here's a question then. So why aren't you fully in the coon dog space? Like why did the bird dog kind of take over your path?
So we used to hunt pheasants with my uncle, and pheasants and grouse, and the Pennsylvania Game Commission would put birds out, and so when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, I guess, we started going and doing that, and that was something I enjoyed. And we would run beagles, and some of those beagles would get on a track, and it might be a grouse and it might be a pheasant, and they would put them up, and then you knock them down, kind of thing. And you kind of knew what they were running. So after that, I just kept saying to my dad, I want a bird dog. And he goes, well, wait until you're done with school, and then I'll buy you one. So about 10 years later, I moved to Flagstaff, Arizona after college. And I said, Dad, I think I'm ready for a dog. And he goes, okay, I'll go find one. And I looked at a bunch of short hairs, because short hairs are a big deal out in Arizona. And so I looked at some short hairs, and I didn't really jive with the personality of any of them. That constant happy feet jockeying around with the young dogs. I'm not, people are going to skewer me for saying that stuff, but they're excitable dogs. They constantly are mouth infatuated, and they're constantly talking. I hate it. I hate that stuff. Even in a pointers that do it, I hate it. And so I went to a couple pointer kennels, and I looked at some dogs, and then I got on some website that talked about L-Hue pointers and crap like that. All right. Well, I bought a double granddaughter, I think, of Snakefoot. And that was the first dog I had, and she was gun shy, but she looked pretty pointed.
Did you buy a little bit older dog? Was she already a started dog?
She was a started dog. She was a year and a half old. And I'm trying to think what age. I got rid of her within a year. I gave her away within a year, and then or maybe it was a year and a half, and I started working other dogs at that time. Bill Gibbons was still alive in Phoenix. So Bill would spend time with me talking bird dogs and talking training. And so every time I went to a big field trial or any of the Arizona field trials, I would speak with him, and he would just share with me. And I was being mentored by a guy named Jim Schultz out of Flagstaff, Arizona. And Jim won a lot of the championships out there between Arizona and California. He was always a contender with his string. And so I got to see a lot of these dogs, and I started working with some that had problems, like runoff dogs or different things like that. And in fact, actually, one of the guys had a dog that won a walking championship, and he offered him to me because he didn't have time to work him anymore. I just didn't like him. I didn't get along with him. He was just, he wasn't anything special to me. He was, and after that, I just thought, I'm going to work the dogs that I jive with. And so the runoff dog, actually, I got her from the same guy, and I loved working her because she always, once I got her in order, she always wanted to do right. And she became a bird dog. And so she,
I want to take a quick minute and talk about OnX Hunt, the #1 digital mapping software in the world. And if you're not using OnX Hunt already, now is a great time to try it out in the off season here. Start looking at some states and areas that you hunt and just see what it can open up. See the acres and the amount of public land it'll open up to you this hunting season. It's a great time to start pre-scouting before the season starts. So check out onxhunt.com. Use promo code rookie20 for 20% off your order.
Yeah, she died young, but she had valley fever, and it eventually killed her, but had a tremendous work ethic and was an enjoyable dog to be around. And so that's when I started working. And then I got Rue, which Rue is over 11 now. But I got him, and he's probably the best bird dog, like sheer bird dog, that I've gotten to develop. And he's a dog that, as far as like sheer numbers, there were some things that he did along the way that were very impressive. Regardless of what everybody else is looking for. When I watch a dog literally go to 6 different coveys of birds in 25 to 30 minutes, and have every one of them steady to wing and shot. And we're talking wild birds on that.
Sure.
Now the birds have to be there, but that same dog is going to them, and we're not chasing any coveys. You know, he's done a lot for me, and he's done a lot for the puppies that we've developed with him. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So that first pointer you got, I know you looked at some short hairs, you got that first pointer who was gun shy.
Yeah.
Did you kind of just fall in love with their personality then from that point, and just seeing what those dogs were capable of, or why have you stuck with the pointer?
You know, it's probably the closest thing to the types of athletes that I've worked with, between distance runners and then also kind of the wrestling background that I grew up with.
Okay.
And so that mentality, they're probably the closest. And then, you know, they're goofy dogs at times, but they're not off task all the time. And they're really quite easy dogs that take care of themselves in the kennel. Like, you could walk into our kennel. I mean, we don't have it down here, but in Idaho or anywhere else that I'm at, and they might all just be laying with their head down and not even worry about you being there. They may not even get up, but if you go to their kennel run, then they know that you're asking them to get up. And these are the same dogs that, you know, maybe they've never been in a house until they're 8 years old, but they're so intelligent that they come into the house and they look for your direction. You give them a direction, and then they are okay. You know, they're very adaptable animals, and it's what I like. That's not putting down, you know, people are going to say, well, he puts down other breed. Well, at times I might, but it's a good, I don't care what breed it is. A good dog's a good dog.
Sure.
It could be a crossbreed. It could be anything. If that dog is bred with intelligence, and I'm talking about real intelligence, not man-made intelligence, or a dog that has to have constant human direction. But if they understand their position, that's the type of dog I'm drawn to. And there's certain lines of pointers I may never own, because they're just not the type of dog I ever want to be around. And specifically, we'll use that word type. You're going to hear that a lot, especially when it comes to breeding. And you think about that, the type of animal is specific to what I'm looking at, not just bloodline. So you can breed a type with 2 different bloodlines or 3 different bloodlines. You can breed similar types because they have similar characteristics and they could come from different bloodlines. So
Ooh, I'm excited to get into the later half of this conversation. I just made a quick note. I want to come back to, you said man-made intelligence versus true intelligence. I just made a mental note of that. We'll come back to that a little bit later here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about 2 more things and we'll kind of move on. One, kind of, you're born to run kennels, your kennels up in Idaho. Can you just talk about that journey a little bit? Like why did you start that kennel? Talk a little bit about, again, I think it's kind of unique. You did kind of like a traveling summer camp thing with that, right?
Yeah.
And you'd bring dogs and run them on wild birds. Just first off, talk about starting that, Born to Run Kennels, and we'll kind of go from there.
So that kind of came about, that name came about. So I worked very briefly for the Tracys for about 3 months. And it was about that time that I came about with that name. And so the whole idea was, it's not just the dog is born to run. It was from my running background through college and post-collegiately and coaching and all that. So, that's essentially what that came about with. My father did not actually want me to train for the public. He never wanted me to do that. More so, he wanted me to be able to just enjoy my dogs, right? And if I'm looking at any father that understands it, he understands he has a son that will take things too far. And that's the long and the short of it. So if he understands he's got a son that'll, take things too far, then that can be good and that can be bad. He never really wanted me to do that. And then we just kept talking. And then I met Seth Simpson when I was in Idaho. And Seth was like, hey, I've got some dogs in for obedience, but he said they're short hairs. And he said, the owners want to hunt them. Would you be willing to do some training for them? And he's like, I'll pay you for it. I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I started going over to Seth's house, about probably 4 days a week. And I started working these short hairs, and I really enjoyed it. And I was already training my own dogs.
Sure. And
then I sold a female named Patch, and I had developed Patch from a puppy up. She's a little younger than Rue, so she'll be 11 this year. But I sold her to Mitch Hurt out in Montana, and she went into Mitch's team, and he guides from Montana to South Texas, and he's been doing it for, I want to say 25 to 26 years, and has a really good, capable string of dogs. And he puts a lot of time with them on the ground, takes wonderful care of his animals. And so I put her up for sale, and because of her bloodlines, she went back to rebel breeding and a dog called Slate Creek Doc, and then a dog called Silver Strike. And it was all old school bloodlines that kind of mixed and matched. Well, everybody that looked at her was like, they saw I only put $2,500 on her, and I thought that was pretty good at the time. And I didn't fancy myself as anything special, so I was young in the whole training of my own dog. So I sold her to Mitch, and he calls me the next season in Montana. He goes, I keep trying to figure out what's wrong with her. Why would you only sell her for $2,500? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, she's broke steady through the kill. And he said she retrieves to hand. I didn't know you force fetched her. I said, no. I said, I never force fetched her. That's natural. And so that was, after that, Mitch and I just kept building this relationship, and she did really well for him down in Texas that year. And when they don't come from Texas and then they go there, for some dogs, it can be extremely challenging. They may not adapt well, and she adapted very well. And she always was a real consistent dog for him. And so the next summer he says, hey, I'm thinking about building 10 kennels at my place. Do you want to come over and train for the summer? I've got all these people they keep asking him to train dogs. He goes, I'm not a dog trainer. Do you want to come over and train for the summer? And I said, well, yeah. So I think I was working for East Junior High at the time in Boise with a special needs program. And I was a paraprofessional. I made no money. But I liked it because I could run but at that point I mean, I bet you I made like $1,200 a month. And then I coached like a little running group. And, so yeah, I just had fun with everything. Well, barely got by and Mitch invited me over and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I went over, and that first summer, I think when all was said and done, I made like, with purchases of food and all that, I think I made like $5,000. And I was over the moon. I was like, yes,
you're like, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is great. And I mean, meanwhile, I'm already 30 years old and I've got nothing, I've got nothing in the bank. I've got nothing really going for me, but I'm just like, wants to give me $500 to $600 a month to work a dog, done, and so that was how it started. Mitch and his wife Annie are the ones that really, and Seth, they were the ones that really started it. And I had great examples between being around Jim Schultz and Flagstaff as a mentor. And he primarily at that time was running Rockacre bred dogs. They were not out of Blackhawk, but they were Rockacre bred dogs. And he had a couple champions in the kennel. And getting to train with him and getting to watch him work them from horseback and riding and doing that. And then Kim Sampson has been West Mountain Kennels. Kim's a wonderful teacher. Which is actually one of her backgrounds. And then she's a tremendous dog trainer. And thankfully I had mentors like that. That was really what did it for me.
I was going to ask you a little bit, where did this, Mitch?
Yeah.
Ask you Mitch, like, you were already trained some dogs at that point. It sounds like your own dogs. Where did that come from for you? Like, was that something, I mean, again, I don't know when this was, but probably wasn't a lot of podcasts or, there's books and stuff out there. Like, where did you learn to train dogs? Where did you kind of get your inspiration from? And
so basically, I watched a lot from Jim Schultz. So the Bill Gibbons always broke dogs on the neck, right? So that was a pinch collar. That was the old Bill West, Bill Gibbons style of training. But when I was developing with Jim did everything. Farrell Miller at the time was breaking dogs on the flank, and he had been doing it for many years. And so that's what Jim did. So he originally did everything on the neck, and then he ended up going to flank stuff. So, and Bill Gibbons would sit, in a horse trailer and just chat with me for an hour about why you break a dog on the neck and what needs to be done and this and that.
So you were able to talk with him directly and ask some questions and
ask a lot of questions and listen to the man, not just talk, but listen to the man. And there were a lot of guys that were around Bill that would constantly talk. And I was so new to it. I didn't have anything to offer him other than effort, like a young guy that had effort. And I didn't know what end was up. Growing up, we never had horses. We didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't know how to care for it. It was just all new to me. So to watch that stuff and try to pick things up along the way. And, but the difference is, and this is what I found out when I watched George Tracy, and I watched George intently. You can learn more watching certain people in 2 months and start using it than most people will learn in 15 years in the sport. And you want to think about that. And if you go and if you went and watched Harold Ray work and break out dogs that he had developed, and you said, well, okay, Harold does it that way. I'm going to go and I'm going to watch this video and I'm going to do it this way. You're going to learn more in 2 months of watching Harold than you could on your own in 10 years. And you're going to learn more than going to a field trial by watching him in training. You're going to learn more, because at a field trial, the whole example or idea of it is to show a dog to where that judge is like, wow, that's a really special dog. You're showing an animal. You're trying to show them at their highest ability. You're not training. You're not developing. You're showing this. And so that's the major difference with a lot of this. And I watched, and it may not seem like a lot because it was a brief time, but I was intently watching and always asking questions of George, to the point where I know it annoyed the hell out of him. And then I mentally at that time I was going through some stuff with the relationship, and I was not doing well on the road mentally. So I went home. Well, when I went home, everything that we were doing with the hanging baskets and, controlled training, all that stuff just transitioned. And then I got to practice it because I had these young dogs. I had 2 young dogs that were ready to be broke out. I had another dog that just needed finishing touches on rough grouse. And then I had a puppy that was too much for her own good at that time, and I had to learn how to handle her. And so I got to go home and practice the heck out of things and really develop dogs in the woods. And then, and then I moved west. And so, that was kind of the whole thing of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to one thing you mentioned, about a dog going, from place X to Texas. Yeah. And can you talk about that a little bit and some of your guiding you've done down there, but what is that specifically with that dog going to Texas? Sounds like it can be a big step for a dog. Talk about that more. Yeah.
So, the thing down there, I actually hate the term guide. I'm going to tell you, for me, I hate the term guide. So just, I hate it because all I want is dog work. That's the biggest
and
thing.
Guiding allows you to work with your dogs more.
Well, guiding, a lot of the really good guides are tremendous people. Like they're a really good people person as well. So they're the guys that can schmooze anybody. I hate that. I hate it. I want someone to, like, when I'm handling a dog, I want to look at it as I'm handling that dog for clients. And I might have a really good rapport with those people, but I'm not trying to talk to them. I'm directing them. I'm directing chaos.
Sure.
But it took me a while. There are so many tremendous guides that don't even care about dog work. They'll say that they do. They've got some of the poorest dogs you'll ever see. And that's not their focus. Their focus is to have fun on the ground and kill birds. My focus is to break out a dog, even if it's in front of a client. So when I was in Montana at one point guiding, I was breaking out young dogs. And they're like, "Oh, why are you running a flank collar on that dog?" Well, you don't need to worry about it, And like, if I saw
dual purpose,
right? That dog could be out 200 yards from me, and I'm intently watching that young dog, and the birds might get up in the air out near it, and I just stop the dog.
Yeah.
And then we go in there, and there's still birds on the ground. I was like, "Guys, I think there's birds in here." The dog's flagging or just standing there, and we just essentially had to stop the flush. And they walk out in front, there's some more birds, and they drop a bird. Well, now that young dog goes to hunting them and pointing them. So just depending on the dog, some of the rebel bred dogs that I've worked would love to run through them at a young age, which I quite enjoy. But the Texas thing, Texas is very, very overwhelming. South Texas is very overwhelming. I have not guided in the Panhandle, and I've not guided or handled dogs in the West Texas area. Okay. I've not done that stuff, but I've handled them on the Mariposa for 4 years. And I really like that country. It's tough country. The Mariposa does not burn. And Ronnie Smith and I have talked about this. I don't know that they've burned in 15 or 20 years. They don't feed any roads. there's about 580 head of cattle on 48,000 acres. So the cattle, and most of them are wild. There's not enough cattle to typically chew it down. So not this past season, but the one before, the cover was so high, like it was up to your chest in a lot of areas.
And what kind of cover are we talking about? Are we talking like cactus?
Well,
are we talking
there's
like
mesquite,
a grass at all?
Well, there's cactus, and there's mesquite, but the biggest difficulty for a lot of dogs that go down there are the stickers, the sandburrs. Sandburrs really overwhelm a sensitive dog, and that's the challenge. So a lot of these dogs that are highly intelligent, and I'm gonna put that out there, many of them that are very sensitive are highly intelligent. And then you've got a lot of the Texas bred dogs have a lot of, they're real brute force dogs. They're strong dogs. They may not have a lot of endurance, but they will go through just about anything. You know, they'll run through a brick wall and come out on the other side. And they're pretty good bird dogs. They have a lot of hunt to them, but those dogs have been bred down there for their purpose for a lot of years. And that's, so at times it can be
are those kind of dogs, then those little bit tougher ones you're saying, can they kind of withstand those burrs and those pokey things a little bit better?
Yeah.
You feel?
Yeah. A lot of those dogs are a little unhinged, and they deal with that stuff pretty well until they get worn down and tired. They deal with it really well. But there's still dogs that, I mean, when I put Rue on the ground the first season down there 4 years ago, the first time on the ground, I don't think he got off the trail at all. Like he ran down the quail road. So it's like a brush hogged road that kind of swivels through the pasture like a big corkscrew. And so he didn't do anything for 3 weeks. Dog looked awful. In fact, my boss told me, he's like, "Look, that dog's not thriving. You might want to take care of him," kind of thing.
Put him on the bench.
Put him down. He's like, he does not look good. He was, and to his point, that dog was sleeping, I bet you 15 to 18 hours a day. He didn't handle the heat at that point. And then I got him going at 3 weeks in. And he started getting into birds, and I put boots on his front, just some of those kind of Kevlar type boots, and and he started getting into birds. And the dog is such a bird dog that at the end of the season, when birds were running, he pointed 9 coveys in a day, and which is huge down there. And I came in, I said, yeah, Rue had 9 coveys today, and everybody just kind of says, really? The dog that, that dog? And I was like, yeah.
That dog?
Yeah, that dog. And I think I had like 5 bird dogs on my string, like legitimate bird dogs at that point. And
real quick, these are your personal dogs, right? These aren't the ranch's dogs. These are your dogs that you've developed.
The ranch does not own any dogs.
Okay.
All the handlers come into that ranch for the season. So, so these are all my personal dogs. So if they fail, if they shut down in front of the truck, which a lot of dogs will, because on certain days you might be running a hunt and it's 95 degrees. Well, if there's a hunt booked, you're running them. Now you're short heating them, you might only have a dog on the ground for 10 minutes. Well, they might get out of the box 4 times in a 3-hour hunt because you keep cycling through dog to dog. Well, when you only have about 5 bird dogs, those suckers better run every time they hit the ground. They better run because, your tipper is reliant on it, but also it makes you look like a fool. And it's embarrassing. I'm not sure. You think about a lot of the problems that we cause with dogs are caused by human embarrassment. They are. And now if I'm sitting out in front of this truck in a handler seat and I've got millionaires sitting up behind me, and they make a snide comment about that dog standing in the road, not doing anything, not going anywhere, not getting anything done, makes you feel pretty embarrassed. So there's a balance that has to, be learned there, and that's a big part of it all. So I got to run to the bathroom quick. Is that allowed?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we will not record. We will just, you leave your phone there.
Okay. I'm going to put my headphones here too. Okay. I'll be right back.
Sounds good. All right, that's a wrap of part 1 of the conversation with Ryan Mulcahy from Born to Run Kennels. Ryan and I had to take a quick potty break here we had a long conversation. So we have a lot more to unpack on this 2-part series. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast. All new episodes, bonus episodes are going to be delivered right to your podcast platform that you are listening to from. So make sure you're subscribed. Head over to YouTube, subscribe over there, like the Facebook page as well as Instagram. So follow along with the journey here at the Upland Rookie Podcast. Other than that, guys, thanks so much for following along. If you haven't left a rating or review yet on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I would love if you could head over there. Takes less than a minute. Leave a rating and a review. I love reading some of those. Helps me keep a pulse on what this show is offering to my listeners. So greatly appreciate that. Until next time, go put some miles on those boots and follow your favorite bird dog. Take care.